Good morning, boys and girls. Hey, glad you could join us. We are on our last session of studying the book of Ruth. And if you were here for the last 2 weeks, you should be able to answer this question. What did Boaz buy from Naomi? Do you remember? It was her land. Boaz bought back Naomi's land, which means that Boaz is a redeemer. To redeem something means you buy it back. Did you know that we have a redeemer too? You probably did. And our redeemer's name is Jesus. He bought back, or he took the punishment for our sin. Jesus purchased from sin and death our lives. And he paid for our lives with his own life on the cross. Now, if you can, pause the video and worship with me while we sing the salvation poem. Do that right now. I will too. And help me, Lord, to live for... Oh, hey, you're back. Okay, great. I was just worshiping to the salvation poem found down in the link. I hope you did too. But now that you're back, let's talk about today's theme. Here it is. God redeems me. God redeems me. Let's all say that on the count of 3 as loud as you possibly can. Maybe it's still morning in your house, and see if you can wake people up by saying this. Ready? 1, 2, 3. God redeems me. Good job, boys and girls. Bye. Boys and girls, what does the word redeemed mean? It means to buy back something. Boys and girls, we were held captive by the power of sin and death. We were held as prisoners to that. But we were bought back. We were bought back by Jesus. And he did this through the cross. He purchased us by dying on the cross, and he bought us out of sin and death into freedom. I hope you had a chance to watch the video from the last 2 weeks where Superbook took Chris and Joy and Gizmo into the story of Ruth. If you haven't, please do that. It's a story you don't want to miss. Now we're going to talk about the Bible verse for today that goes along with our lesson. The Bible verse is Psalm 103, verse 4. He redeems me from death and crowns me with love and tender mercies. So God redeemed us from sin and death, but he didn't stop there. He also crowns us with love and tender mercies. Boys and girls, when you follow Jesus Christ and you are redeemed from sin and death through the cross, you also have a crown put on you. You are a prince and a princess, a child of the King, and that's King God. You are one of his. If you haven't watched the video on Ruth, please do that. But there's also another video listed in the comments below. That's the signpost video. And that connects the story of Ruth with the New Testament story of Jesus. Boaz was the Redeemer in the Old Testament. Jesus is our Redeemer. And by watching that, you see the connection. Now here's a question for you that you'll see in the signpost video. It says, because Jesus redeemed us and rescues us, we are free. We are free from sin to serve him. Does anyone know what the first book in the New Testament is? The first book in the Old Testament is Matthew. And in the book of Matthew, it talks about Jesus' ancestors, his great-great-grandparents. And guess who is Jesus' great-great-great-grandmother, a couple greats, grandmother? It's Ruth, the same person that we've been watching the videos on and talking about. Ruth is Jesus' great-grandmother. You know, Ruth's life wasn't always happy. It turned out great in the end, but in the beginning, you'd never know it. Our lives aren't always happy either. Boys and girls, sometimes we go through some hard times. Sometimes we experience sadness. But you know what? God is always there. He has redeemed us, and he has a great plan for us so that we don't have to worry entirely about this world. we have the next world that we have great news. Great news is we have a place saved for us in heaven with Jesus forever. Thank the Lord that those of us who follow Jesus have a place in heaven forever. Now, I also want to encourage you to watch the Ruth story again if you haven't, or if you maybe missed some things, you want to watch it again, and watch the signpost video, which shows the connection to Ruth and Jesus. And lastly, you can worship again anytime you want by clicking on the salvation poem. This should really help you understand the Bible story of Ruth. I'll see you again next week.